Have you ever noticed how financial growth often comes with an invisible cost? Stress? You set ambitious goals, chase higher income, invest in opportunities, but somehow the more you earn, the more pressure you feel. What if I told you that 2,000 years ago, a Stoic philosopher named Seneca laid out a blueprint that could free you from this cycle completely? A way to grow wealth without the constant anxiety that usually comes with it. The truth is, Seneca was one of the richest men of ancient Rome. He had more money than most people could ever dream of, but here's the twist. He insisted that true financial success was not measured in gold or estates, but in peace of mind. Imagine that, a man surrounded by luxury, yet teaching that the real path to freedom wasn't external, it was internal. So how do we take Seneca's wisdom and use it today in a world filled with credit cards, market crashes, and endless financial noise? Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll have a practical system, Seneca's blueprint, for stress-free financial growth. Let's begin with his first principle: define enough. Seneca believed that most of our financial stress comes not from what we lack, but from endlessly chasing more. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Ask yourself, do you have a clear number or vision of what enough means for you? Or are you caught in the trap of moving goalposts? Here's the shocking part. Many people in debt and many millionaires share the same anxiety, because both are caught in the cycle of not enough. Seneca teaches us to step out of this trap. The first step to stress-free financial growth is clarity. Decide what level of income or savings truly secures your peace of mind, then build toward that, not toward an endless chase. But let's open a deeper question. What happens if you ignore this principle? You might earn more, but every raise, every windfall creates new cravings, a bigger house and a nicer car, more prestige. You think you're advancing, but you're running faster on a treadmill. The stress never leaves. Defining enough breaks the cycle. Now, once you've defined what's enough, Seneca's second principle kicks in. Practice financial resilience through voluntary discomfort. At first glance, it sounds unusual. Why would deliberately experiencing less lead to more growth? But here's the twist. This exercise trains you to detach your happiness from luxuries. Seneca regularly ate plain meals, slept on the floor, and lived for days as if he had lost everything. Not because he enjoyed suffering, but because it reminded him, I can live simply. I don't need as much as I think. This mindset is financial armor, because when markets crash or when income drops, you don't panic. You already know you can thrive with less. Think about how powerful that is today. Imagine losing your job tomorrow. For most, that's a nightmare, but if you've already rehearsed simplicity, if you've experienced life stripped of extras, you stay calm. You adapt. Instead of being ruled by fear, you make smart, measured choices. And here's a real-world example. During the 2008 financial crisis, many people panicked and sold their investments at huge losses. But those who had practiced restraint and simplicity were less shaken. They didn't feel the same terror of losing status or comfort. They kept their heads, stayed invested, and came out wealthier when markets recovered. Now let's open another loop. How do you balance simplicity with ambition? If Stoicism teaches us to live simply, doesn't that contradict the idea of financial growth? Seneca himself answered this perfectly, and his answer might shock you. He didn't say to avoid wealth, he said to avoid dependence on it. And this is where the blueprint really becomes powerful, Because financial growth without stress isn't about rejecting wealth. It's about pursuing it strategically, with clarity and discipline, rather than from fear or greed. I'm Saul, and here's where the story gets practical. Seneca's third principle is diversification, not just of investments, but of your life. He advised never tying your well-being to one fragile source. In modern terms, that means not relying solely on one income stream, one employer, or one investment. Because when all your security depends on one pillar, any crack becomes unbearable stress. But here's the twist. When you build multiple sources of stability, stress fades. Imagine having your salary, a small investment portfolio, and maybe a side income. Suddenly, one setback isn't life-ending. Your identity and peace of mind aren't tied to a single point of failure. And that raises a critical question. Why do so many people cling to one fragile source of income, even when they know it's risky? The answer, Seneca would say, is comfort. We stick to what's familiar, but comfort is often the enemy of freedom. So how do we break free from it? The next part of Seneca's blueprint reveals the most overlooked yet powerful habit for building wealth with calm clarity. It's the same practice modern CEOs and elite athletes quietly use today to stay focused and unshaken. And I'll show you exactly what it is in just a moment. The overlooked habit I mentioned is daily reflection. Seneca ended most of his days by reviewing his actions, his choices, and his mindset. He asked himself, where did I act wisely? Where did I let emotions control me? And how can I improve tomorrow? Applied to finances, this simple practice becomes a game changer. Think about it. How often do people track their expenses, but never reflect on the emotions behind those expenses? Reflection shows you the hidden triggers that lead to financial stress. Was it boredom that made you spend? Was it envy after scrolling through social media? Or was it fear of missing out on an opportunity? When you catch the pattern, you can change it. Without reflection, you're blind. With it, you grow daily. And here's the fascinating part. Studies in behavioral psychology confirm that reflection rewires your brain. By consciously reviewing actions, you strengthen the pathways for discipline and weaken those for impulse. In other words, you literally train your brain to make stress-free financial decisions. But let's tie this to growth. If you reflect daily, you don't just avoid mistakes, you also multiply wins. You notice the good habits you're building and reinforce them. Maybe you saved a little extra, invested calmly during a downturn, or resisted unnecessary spending. Highlighting these victories builds momentum. You start stacking wins, and stress begins to fade because you see progress clearly. Now let me challenge you. Tonight, before bed, write down 3 simple things. 1 financial decision you regret, 1 decision you're proud of, and 1 improvement for tomorrow. Do this for just a week and see the difference in your confidence. You'll be amazed how quickly clarity replaces chaos. But Seneca's blueprint doesn't stop at reflection. The next principle is preparation. He taught that we should rehearse adversity in our minds, so when it arrives, it doesn't shake us. Today, this is called negative visualization. Imagine losing a job or your investments dropping in value. Instead of ignoring the thought, you face it head on. You ask, what would I do? How would I respond? The surprising effect is calm. Instead of being blindsided, you feel prepared. And prepared people don't panic, they act. Modern finance mirrors this. The most successful investors aren't those who avoid downturns, but those who expect them, prepare, and seize the opportunities within them. Here's a powerful example. Ray Dalio, founder of one of the largest hedge funds, built his empire by anticipating worst-case scenarios. He embraced the Stoic principle of preparation, and when crises came, he didn't break down, he thrived. Imagine applying even a fraction of that to your own life. But this leads to a new question. How do you avoid becoming pessimistic if you're always visualizing setbacks? Seneca's answer is brilliant. The goal isn't to dwell on loss, it's to free yourself from fear of loss. Once you accept that setbacks are part of life, they lose their power to control you. And ironically, that mindset opens the door to greater financial growth because you're no longer paralyzed by fear. Now let's bring everything together. Seneca's blueprint for stress-free financial growth isn't about chasing shortcuts. It's about building an inner fortress so strong that external events lose their power to shake you. Define enough, practice simplicity, diversify your life, reflect daily, and prepare for adversity. These steps transform wealth from a source of stress into a source of freedom. So here's my final challenge to you. Choose just one of these principles and practice it today. Write down your definition of enough. Skip one luxury for a week to remind yourself you can live without it. Start a 5-minute nightly reflection, or simply visualize one setback and calmly plan how you'd handle it. Because stress-free financial growth doesn't start with markets, banks, or paychecks. It starts with you. It starts with mastering your mind, just as Seneca taught 2,000 years ago. And once you commit to this blueprint, you'll realize that financial freedom isn't just about numbers. It's about peace. And peace, once you taste it, becomes the wealth you'll never trade away.